It is going from bad to worse for Tottenham Hotspur under Thomas Frank. After a fourth defeat at home, things are looking pretty grim. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at why. We're going to be discussing why Tottenham are struggling so much, what are the key reasons behind their deterioration, and what Thomas Frank must do to turn it around. 4 defeats at home in 7, not a win at home in the Premier League since their first game against Burnley. It doesn't matter how you spin it, it's not good for Spurs at home. And before making this, I actually didn't know a lot of the statistics behind Spurs' form, but after seeing it, it's worse than I thought. Let me take you through it. So, Spurs average 9.7 shots at home. That is one of the lowest in the league. I believe it's the second lowest in the league. They actually have shots on target of 2.9. That's again one of the lowest in the league. And XG wise, they have 7.14 XG at home. That is nowhere near good enough. And even not at home, when Spurs are playing generally, they have 88 key passes. That is the third lowest in the Premier League. To put it short, Spurs going forwards and creatively are almost non-existent, and this is the most dramatic statistic of them all. They have 6 through balls in the entirety of the campaign. Just that's it. 6. I feel like I need to reiterate that. They have 6 through balls. For anyone who doesn't know what a through ball is, it is the pass that goes through an opposition defence into space. Spurs are not projecting the ball forwards. They are not progressing. To put it into context, the most is 44. That's from Arsenal. That is a huge difference. And Burnley, who are the only team that are below some Spurs on some of these statistics, they have 16. Something is not right. And then when we take a look at shot creating actions per 90, again, extremely low. I believe they are the joint second lowest with 16.62 shot creating actions per 90. It's not good. And then from a defensive point of view, they have the most errors leading to shots with 16. It's not good at all. So what is going wrong for them? Why can't they create chances? Well, we could look at Xavi Simons, and we could talk about the likes of James Maddison or Dejan Kulusevski coming back into the side and starting to create. But I'm not sure they would make too much difference. And the reason I say that is because of the way that Spurs look to build. And the fact is, they don't. They cannot. They struggle to play through the lines. They are one of the least press-resistant sides in the Premier League currently. And to give you a bit of context around that, Spurs cannot build at all. And they rank 3rd highest for amount of touches in their own third. And then they drop off massively when it comes to playing into the middle third and the opposition's third. So why is this happening? They can't play through the lines. When we think about the way that Tottenham play forwards, we think about the centre-backs splitting, we think about the full-backs playing high, and they want to play through the middle, through Bentancur and Palhinha. But remember what I said about them being press-resistant, or rather the lack of them being press-resistant. They can't play the ball into Bentancur or Palhinha because they get pressurised. Palhinha can't play the ball forwards, and Bentancur doesn't have enough mobility to be able to take the ball and start to create passing lanes and passing triangles. To top that in its entirety, Spurs don't have patterns of play. They don't know how to get out of difficult situations. They're not practiced, they're not drilled, and that means that once a player gets the ball, they get scared because they don't have the next pass in their head. And that might sound simple, but it is something that they are seriously lacking. They do not have an idea of how to get out of a press. They just don't know. And they want to get the ball into Xavi Simons, but they can't. And they can't because of the pressurisation of both Bentancur and Palhinha centrally due to these 2 attackers on the opposite side. So they take away the passing lanes. Now, once this happens, you might think that Van de Ven and Porro are also passing options. But teams in the Premier League are clever, and they instead look to press a little bit higher, and they look to press you into a certain quadrant because they want to turn over the ball higher in the pitch. And if they shuffle you round into a corner, it makes it more difficult for you to get out. So what they do is this. They push their striker on high, they move a midfielder higher, so both of these centre defensive midfielders are pressurised, and now you've got those passing lanes over towards the centre-back and the right-back cut off. This leaves Romero completely isolated, and without a lot of movement, which Spurs don't have at the moment, Romero doesn't have a passing option, which forces him to go long. And a perfect illustration of this is right here. And this is what Chelsea did to Tottenham time after time again. It's what teams do to Tottenham time after time again. They stop the ball going into those midfielders and they start to pressurise and funnel them into a corner. It gives them the ball back, or in this particular situation, Chelsea turn the ball over high up the pitch and then they get a chance. It is textbook, and Spurs play into it time after time again. And then there's Thomas Frank, because for me, one of the greatest attributes of Thomas Frank is actually the thing that is hindering Tottenham the most, or at the very least, one of the major pillars that is preventing Spurs from really starting to progress and really turning into a different side from what we saw under Ange Postecoglou. We praised Thomas Frank time after time again for his pragmatism, for his ability to shift his side, to shape his side around an ideal or an identity to be able to beat an opposition on any given day. And that, in its entirety, is preventing Spurs from understanding who they are. And that might sound a little strange, but Spurs are changing. They are changing continuously. They're in a state of flux. They don't have what so many good teams desperately need, and that is identity. They don't have patterns of play. They don't have a way of going forwards. They keep shifting. They keep changing. They don't have relationships. They don't have an understanding of one another. And that is because they keep shifting, whether it be styles, whether it be patterns of play or styles of play, whether that be shape. They just can't do it. And to give you a really good example of this, this is them against Man United. They started out with a 4-2-3-1. Sarr and Palhinha in midfield. Xavi Simons in the 10. Richarlison out wide. Strange, but okay. Colomwani up front. Now take a look at what they did against Arsenal. You had a back three. Danzo comes into the side. You had Bentancur and Palhinha. Udogie and Spence as the wing-backs. Odegaard comes into the side now, and Mohamed Kudus with Richarlison operate in something of a 3-4-2-1. But now we look at one of the most recent games against Fulham, and they changed yet again. They changed to a back four, but a midfield four. They changed to a 4-4-2. They now have Udogie and Porro. They have Palhinha and Gray. All of these relationships are now needing to be made once more. Bergvall on the left-hand side, Kudus on the right. You have Colomwani and Richarlison. You have a double striking partnership now. Now, I'm not saying don't change anything, but what you're changing now is far too much, and you're preventing from any kind of relationship between these players to be built. You just cannot do it. And it's from that Spurs gain confusion, that Spurs don't really understand what they're doing, and they don't understand what they need to do next. And that is a crucial point of not only getting out of a press, but also creating and orchestrating chances. It is confusing for the players, and it's one of the biggest detriments, one of the biggest problems for this Tottenham Hotspur side currently. And if players don't understand what they're doing and they don't know what to do next, you get moments like this that cause chaos. So take a look at this. This is Tottenham looking to prevent Fulham from building. You've got Tottenham with their 4-4-2, but they've had a couple of positional changes to try and stop Fulham from building. You've got Richarlison and Colomwani just on the edge of the box, assuming that they're going to try and pressure both centre-backs. You have Mohamed Kudus on this far side, pressuring the left-back. But you've got Bergvall moving in field to pressurise one of the Fulham centre midfielders. You've also got Archie Gray pushing forwards away from Palhinha and pushing onto the other centre midfielder for Fulham. This has dragged out Udogie to go and then pressurise the Fulham right back. Things are starting to look a little bit strange, but we'll continue. As the ball goes over the top, what have you got here? Because of the break between this Tottenham side, between defence and then the pressurisation of that Fulham defensive line, what you've now got is this. You've essentially got a 50-50 to get Fulham into and behind this Tottenham defensive line. You've got Palhinha dropping into something of a centre-back role. He should be marking the attacking midfielder, but look at how much space King has. It is incredible. You've got Udogie making a defensive run backwards, a recovery run. You've got Van de Ven coming across to cover. That means that he can't cover this situation. It's all a bit of a mess. So as the ball gets flicked on by Raul Jimenez, again, Danzo doesn't really jump here. That's a completely different argument. Those are the duels that Thomas Frank is talking about. But if you're not certain about your particular position, maybe you're not going to win those duels. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. But in this particular scenario, he doesn't. He doesn't jump for the duel. He mistimes his header, and it gets flicked on over towards the Fulham left winger. That leaves a 1v1 between him and Porro. This should not happen. And again, look at the amount of space that you've got for King right here. It is incredible. This is the problem that Tottenham have. It's just completely unmanageable. And then it goes into a 1v1. Van de Ven does a fantastic job, and he gets the ball back off the Fulham winger, but it's just far too easy. And it's caused by the amount of chaos that is around this side due to the lack of understanding and the lack of an identity that the Spurs side clearly have. So how do you change it? How do you turn this around? Well, if I'm honest, guys, there actually isn't an answer. There isn't some kind of magic wand that Thomas Frank can wave that next week Spurs will be absolutely brilliant and will have turned a corner. But what he can do, I think, is try to focus on creating an identity for this Tottenham Hotspur side. Something that doesn't rely on changing formation every single week, and something that allows them to build patterns of play. For me, that is this hybrid 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 when entering an attacking phase of play. I've decided to remove Bentancur out of the situation and bring Bergvall, somebody who can transition from a deep line midfielder into something of an attacking player when Spurs want to go forwards. And instead of focusing down the centre of the pitch, which we know Tottenham have had notorious problems with, especially through Paulinho and Bentancur, I think you need to start to look at those outside channels, bringing in the fullbacks and bringing through good patterns of play that can be linked through with the likes of Xavi Simons and Bergvall, creating triangles, creating patterns to get you out of that initial pressure from the opposition. Kolomoani or Richarlison dropping a little bit deeper to help link with play as well. And then once you have that space and beyond, through balls are absolutely key to try and get through into those attacking areas. Once you start to bring out the opposition, it's about creating attacking triangles and attacking dynamic patterns of play that can start to move the opposition around. Utilize Xavi Simons in one of these pockets, Bergvall doing the same, making underlapping runs and helping your wingers. It's not necessarily about the personnel, but it's about the system and the way the system comes forwards. Do that, and I think that Spurs might, just might, be able to start to create a few more chances and start to create a few better opportunities for themselves, and maybe, just maybe, turn a corner. But of course, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you make of Tottenham Hotspur? How would you turn it around? And do you think Thomas Frank can do it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learnt something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.